And hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Talking Marijuana. Episode? Is that how we say it?
Sure.
Episode?
It is now.
Webisode.
Welcome to Talking Marijuana. We're your hosts. I'm Barry Kramer. I am the operator of California Patients Alliance, a GLACA-accredited dispensary here in Los Angeles on Melrose.
And I'm Yami Bolaños. I'm the patient operator for Pure Life Alternative Wellness Center on La Cienega, and I'm the president of the Greater Los Angeles Collectors Alliance, setting the standard for medical marijuana in Los Angeles since 2006.
Wow. Well, and hello, I'm Don Duncan, the California Director of Americans for Safe Access.
And I'm Dan Gabriel, comedian and marijuana freedom fighter.
Enthusiast. I like it. It's good. We are your hosts of Talking Marijuana. We had two awesome guests scheduled to be with us today, but instead you're going to get the four of us talking for 1 hour on marijuana, which we love to talk about, so good for us.
Thank you, LA Traffic.
Thank you, LA Traffic. We had a very busy week, for sure, in drug policy in the country, so we've got lots to chat about. I'm eager to hear what you guys think about what happened this week. And
Where should we start?
you know what? We're going to start with headlines like we normally do. And one headline that caught my eye this week was the police at the Seattle Marijuana Hemp Fest, quote, "Hey dude, want some Doritos?" So yeah, the Seattle Hemp Fest went off quite successfully, I believe, this past weekend. And one of the cool aspects about it this year, with legal marijuana allowed in Colorado and Washington, is that it was legal to smoke this year, and the police were out in force, and they wanted to just remind people that there were still rules that needed to be followed, and rather than hand out flyers to everybody, they handed out bags of Doritos.
And the Doritos have the laws on the back?
They did, yeah, it was written. It basically said they came with a friendly but clear message.
No double dipping.
We thought you might be hungry, the label reads. We also thought this might be a good time for a refresher on the do's and don'ts of I-502, which was their legislation. And the don'ts are: don't drive while high, don't give, sell, or shotgun weed to people under 21, don't use pot in public, and you could be cited, but we'd rather give you a warning. What a friendly note.
That is a wonderful idea.
And then that's the do's, and then the
don'ts.
Right, that was the don'ts, and the do's are: do listen to Dark Side of the Moon at a reasonable volume, and do enjoy Hempfest. And it was signed with a little heart and the SPD. So what a great way of policing.
How do you suppose that came up in a board meeting somewhere at the police department? They're like, oh, we got to do this Hempfest thing, and
we should hand out flyers. Well, they're just going to roll them up and smoke them. How do we get them to read it? Well, can we attach it to something?
And I think the police ate a lot of the Doritos as well, and they got to know what was going on with the laws as well.
Right, you know.
But what a great, I took away from this article that it was such a, the Hempfest is huge. It gets bigger, like everything, Burning Man, everything, every year gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So the Hempfest has gotten really big, and rather than saying, we're gonna clamp down on this, and we're not, they went with the spirit of the thing, go with the flow, and their policing was effective. No violence happened. That's what they're looking for: public safety. And what an enlightening.
Did get billing on this? Did sponsors?
I don't know.
They probably gave them a discount.
Tie-in here.
It was very progressive of the police in Seattle to act like that, especially when you look around, even here in California, how unprogressive.
Yeah, it's really cool when the police represent the desire of the people and go along with it, instead of riding this rogue wave of we still want to enforce bullshit.
They have legal marijuana coming on. It's there. They still haven't regulated it. They're working on that, but it is coming for those two states.
The closer that they get to creating the formula for how it's supposed to work, the sooner other states can adopt it.
And the sooner I think that law enforcement and the legislators get on board and work to implement the policy rather than to oppose the policy. We see here in Los Angeles exactly what opposing the policy, and in California, as a matter of fact, this week for sure. I mean, law enforcement here in California killed a very big bill that we're going to also take some time to talk about. Sure. We can talk about it now and just bring it up a little bit.
Well, sure. California is funny, right? Because we passed the very first medical marijuana law in the country. Right back in 1996, the voters adopted Proposition 215. But it doesn't really say a whole lot. It says you're exempt from penalties if you're a legal patient and you can have a caregiver, but it doesn't really do much beyond that. And so we've had, 17, 18 years we've had now to implement that law. And our state legislature has only passed one bill to actually implement the purpose of Proposition 215. That's ironically SB 420, which I know was an inside joke at the file clerk's office. But there's so much unfinished work now, and in California, we've got our Attorney General, our lawmakers at the city and county level, the public, the patients, the cultivators. Everyone's calling for regulation. Please come regulate us. Make it all work. And do you know who stands in the way every single year?
Law enforcement.
Law enforcement lobbyists, always blocking the path towards sensible regulation.
Because they have a lot of money to lose.
I think we should take up a collection and send those guys to HempFest.
Yeah. Get them some Doritos.
Here's how you do this, because we can get back to Lobby Day later in the broadcast, but here in California, it's the exact opposite of Seattle. Yeah. The law enforcement is standing in the way, and they will not let the legislature or the cities or the counties implement this law.
And there seems to be no more logical path than to get regulations for the entire state of California. We're 17 years into this, and we still don't have regulations. It seems like it's a no-brainer. Let's get back on board.
We started celebrating too early.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that
absolutely.
On Saturday night, I was with a group of people, activists here in Southern California. We were at the 10-year celebration for NORML's OC celebration. There was a couple people there. Joe Gumbrine was one of them. Candace. Also other activists. And we were all talking about how the celebration in Washington was going on, and what a great celebration, but that in California we really didn't have anything real to celebrate, because people are getting busted still every day. There's a pushback even on our Measure D.
Well, I can say this on the plus side in California. When you look at the other states, there are lots of states that have medical marijuana laws in the books, and patients still aren't getting medicine.
That's true.
So
absolutely.
In terms of access, California's done well against the odds.
Done well for its patients.
In terms of being orderly and rational, no, not so great. But patients here get medicine.
Yes.
It was one of the reasons I was really happy that Washington and Colorado went ahead and legalized marijuana before California did it. I thought California had its share of being first with medical marijuana, and we haven't really finished with that. We haven't regulated. We haven't really completed that. So if we had come on 3 years ago during the presidential election and legalized marijuana, my goodness, the amount of legislative chaos that we would be in right now would be enormous. I feel it's great. Let Colorado and Washington work out some of these problems with the feds. That's also been huge in the news
this week. Not only that California has to fix medical before it can go to legalization. Absolutely has to fix medical, because they're in some places the medical is getting pushed back on because the recreational.
And we're not talking about just letting people smoke. We're talking about people's lives.
Wouldn't just legalizing for recreational purposes clear up all of the medical?
No, it's tempting to think that, but not really. The legalization of medical overlap at the criminal justice system, but that's really it.
But I mean, patients, if it was legal for recreational purposes, then the medical patients would still be able to get it, and there wouldn't be a problem, right?
The situation that's unfolding in Washington right now is that the states legalized marijuana, and they're trying to figure out what to do with medical cannabis. And many of the patients there are worried because they feel like the other issues that aren't criminal justice issues, that don't deal with getting busted or cited, are now just sort of being abandoned, and they're walking away and looking at this as a revenue source, and the state's going to make money. But there are issues around patients' rights, around safety, around quality, clinical trials, all of the normal healthcare things that don't have anything to do with legalization, but are all about medical, that still have to be done. And so we have to I think that when we pursue legalization, we have to remember that what it will do is it'll mean fewer people get busted, right? But it's not going to solve everything. We also have to be really careful about how legalization unfolds in California. In Washington, the lobbyists and the people pushing for the implementation of their legalization refer to medical cannabis now as the medical loophole because it represents a threat to their revenue source. And the phrase we're hearing now is we're going to close the medical loophole. Then that's not the way to approach it.
No, that's definitely not the way to approach it.
Yeah,
Three cheers for legalization, but it won't replace medical. It's just they just overlap, in the courtroom.
Okay. Wow.
At least that's my spin.
I was in Ohio for the past 10 days, and not only are they not a medical state, but here's the law as it was explained to me by a couple of comics there. If you have a sack of weed in your pocket, if you have marijuana in your pocket, the cop can give you a fine. I think it's like a $200 fine. If you have a pipe in your pocket, it is a felony.
Oh.
Wow.
Well,
isn't that
that's crazy. I'm not sure how
our politicians got tough on pipes.
Yeah, it's like I mean, if a used pipe, it has to be resonated, but it's just ridiculous. So I would travel with, I would just travel with the weed and try to find.
You know who's behind that law, by the way, is the pipe industry, right?
Oh, yeah.
Pipe every time.
Every time, yeah. The Apple industry out there is going crazy.
Some people are like, huh?
That's a pretty wild law. I'm not sure that the comics are real legal authorities that you've spoke to in Ohio, but it sounds
that actually one of a few of them had gotten busted
with a pipe,
just outside the club smoking.
It's comics who smoke pot.
Yes,
really?
I know it's shocking. I know
Felons
it is shocking.
How can they be?
But they're just normal people like the rest of us. Yeah.
Oh, lordy,
Wow.
lordy. There was a big brouhaha over an ad that was being placed on during the NASCAR week. It was about a month ago or so. So at NASCAR,
apparently it's the most popular sport in quotes in the nation. Really,
which is why I think it was targeted.
Which I don't understand at all.
yeah.
So the controversy came over. It was a Marijuana Policy Project, MPP, an organization that works toward legalization, and they've worked in many states in the country on that. Put out an ad, made an ad, a television ad.
I think I saw this.
To be run at NASCAR that was basically extolling the virtues of marijuana over the
virtues of alcohol.
The vices of alcohol and the harm that alcohol can do for you. Here you could watch NASCAR, have a great time, enjoy a little whatever, and not have adverse effects to your not have the toxicity of alcohol in your system. So. The ad was basically saying that marijuana, and not basically, it came out and said marijuana is less toxic than alcohol. And
what reaction?
We're going to do this
How
in a
do
new
people react?
We're gonna time out on that. We're gonna have a new segment. Welcome to our new segment. Here's our new segment. It's called The Dope of the Week.
The Dope of the Week.
And the Dope of the Week this week is the United States government, and is specifically...
Isn't that the Dope of the Week every week?
Well, they can't win every week. We'll have other runner-ups and things like that.
The National Institute on Drug Abuse.
Okay, but they stepped in and did what?
So they stepped in. NIDA, the National Institute
on Drug Abuse,
Drug Abuse, came in and said, they denied that. They denied the factual claim that alcohol is more toxic than marijuana. They said that it's, got all... They went on with all of the old arguments that, it's this, and it's going to do this to people down the road, and it's going to do that to people, which... may happen. We just don't have the research or the legal ability to do that research quite yet. However, what isn't in dispute is that marijuana is at least, at very minimum, 100 times less toxic to your system
than alcohol.
Yes. So PolitiFact picked this up, this controversy, and they ran a thing that said it was mostly true. And that the NIDA.
But a lot less people are going to see the PolitiFact statement than would have seen the. What we need is for there to be a huge pot leaf on the front of a NASCAR.
We'll do that next
We need
year.
that. We need to sponsor because they can't stop. Somebody from sponsoring the car. You could put, you could put that statement on the front of a car.
Well, let's take a little break. When we come back, I'll get into the marijuana car and take a spin around the park.
Okay, sounds good.
We'll be breaking right now. We'll see you on the other side.
Upcoming shows to the John Lovitz Vodcast Network.
Welcome to FY. It's Dimitri Young here with Robert Fick. Hey everybody, welcome to Talking Marijuana.
Hi everybody, Crabman's Rock and Roll Revival featuring Frazier Smith is on the air, in your hair, and going out everywhere around the world.
I'm Gary Garver, live from the John Lovitz Comedy Club.
This is the John Lovitz Vodcast Network.
Hi, John Lovitz here. It's time to put laughter back into your life. Check out the John Lovitz Comedy Club, located in the heart of Universal Studios City Walk, Los Angeles, not Orlando. For tickets, go to thejohnlovitzcomedyclub.com.
You are listening to the John Lovitz Vodcast Network.
With Talking Marijuana and your hosts Barry and Yami and Don and Dan, and we were talking about NIDA and their denial of the fact that marijuana is less toxic to your body than alcohol. And that's what the question was. That's what the statement of the commercial that MPP, Marijuana Policy Project, ran at NASCAR. And that was all that was really being contested. And NIDA said it's not true. And, just to deny real science, for the government to just say, we want science-based laws, and then to totally deny
it makes sense that NIDA sounds like an old, stubborn lady. It just sounds like my aunt going, no.
Yeah. NIDA, Aunt NIDA.
Yeah, Aunt NIDA. Seriously.
I love the fact that they gave the reason that they pulled the commercial because it wasn't a family-oriented commercial. It's like Budweiser.
But there's a Budweiser across every car. And there's erectile dysfunction commercials.
What kind of message is it to have alcohol logos on cars anyway that are going really fast?
Really?
Yeah.
We do need to have a car emblazoned with a big pot leaf, and then that would be...
They're going to lose every race.
Could NIDA stop
really
that?
slow.
Could NIDA step in and keep that from going on?
I don't know, but what if that car won? Think of the implications of that.
Yeah.
The pot.
Yeah.
The pot people won.
Maybe now it'll be noticed
they
that
have a
sports
hangover
figures
in the
smoke
morning.
marijuana. Our Olympians.
There's plenty of
get
sports
gold
figures who
medals.
do smoke marijuana. Michael Phelps.
Yeah, absolutely.
More gold medals than anyone ever.
While
He
smoking
smokes
marijuana.
weed,
Yeah. I knew a race driver that who said he was a derby race driver down in the Baja in Mexico. He would do that crazy race they do down in Mexico, always win, and he would always smoke before he got in his car. He needed it to be able to get into the flow of what was going on.
I have a friend who's on the Paralympics soccer team, and they drug test those guys.
Whoa.
And it's like those guys they're
taking drugs.
I know, but they should be allowed to smoke marijuana because they have issues going on that they should be allowed to have it for. But my buddy who's on the team has a cerebral palsy, and he's not allowed to smoke while he's playing soccer for the team. That's not performance enhancing at all.
That's ignorance. That's what that is.
It's just stupid.
Ignorance.
We have so much of that to combat in this issue, and you can see it in the politics of things. The politics are always a year to multiple years behind what the general public has now come to accept as the fact. Whether it is or not, whether they need to look into it, they should look into it. But they're so reactionary to everything. CBDs are good. Okay, well then here in New Jersey now we have Governor Christie saying, okay, then we'll let kids eat edibles. No smoking, no tinctures, no nothing, but we'll let them eat edibles. It's a way to get them their CBD medicine. And he thinks he's being compassionate when he's just being ignorant.
Yes.
Because if you do think that kids could have some advantage from the medicine, then find all the ways they can do it. You don't want them to smoke? I understand that. People aren't allowed to smoke until they're 18 years old anyway. We all know that. People do, but it's against the law. There's laws. let's just
figure out a way to extract the oils.
I don't understand why Mr. Christie decided that edibles were only for children. It's so funny because here in California, we've gone out of our way to, label the edibles so that the kids don't get to them that are not supposed to get to them, But why is it, how... I don't understand how he decided that was good for children.
I think he just decided he needed like a halfway stance, and that's the one he picked.
Right, he's running for president.
So we go back to politics, that you don't do things because you believe in them or because you think they're right, only because somebody paid you to say it.
I'm just happy that a Republican governor's coming out and towards it at all.
That's a positive step.
I mean, that guy could be a presidential candidate. He's really popular.
Yeah, but how much of a presidential candidate do you think he would be if he had let that little girl that the father was chasing him around saying, are you going to let my little girl die? That's why he did it. Because, he's a father too and he's compassionate, but he did that for, what do you call it?
He inherited New Jersey's medical marijuana program from Corzine before him.
But that doesn't matter.
He never liked it. He never wanted to implement it. He's fought against it his whole tenure there. And this is the first time he's given just a little bit.
Even if it's a weird baby step.
Even if it's a weird step. And it's a weird baby step because all of a sudden he's saying it's okay to give marijuana to kids.
It's more than Obama's said.
Yeah, that's true, I guess. I don't know. It's just...
Our politicians need a big leg up on education.
It just makes me so mad
that they can make real good policy.
I don't think that it's about education so much. I think that they all know what's going on. Look at Mr. Gupta came out and said, I'm so sorry. I've, been ignorant about this whole thing and this whole time. I think that it's just financially good for them to come out or not come out, politicians.
Well, we're gonna talk about Sanjay Gupta, but I do think that him coming out was really...
It was excellent.
It's a sign of the times.
That's huge.
It's a sign of the times.
But with these politicians, it's not necessarily the case that they're all paid off and in the pocket of special interests. Just some are. The thing with politicians is they need to find a safe place to stand in their home district, whatever that is, their state congressional district, Senate, state assembly district, whatever it is. They need to know that it's okay to be to step out from the herd in that district. Because if they think they're going to get reelected, then they can do it.
Right.
And so that's where our job comes in, is to create in those districts a safe political space for our elected officials to stand and say, you know what, medical cannabis is legal, it's the law, we're going to implement this thing.
And that comes through the education process.
Exactly.
I mean, they need to know that not just CBDs help people, but why the CBDs help people, and the range of people that they can help.
Even more important than the science of it, they need to know that there are people who vote for them that care about this. That's the key.
I guess. I hate boiling the issue down to that.
I know,
to me, the issue is about the people that need it, not the person that's deciding whether we get it or not.
That's the issue for us. It's not the issue for them.
You are a true advocate, and that's what you do for 100% of your time.
We just came back from Sacramento. We had a big lobby day this past week.
Let's talk about that. We had a big lobby day in California.
We had about 85 people who came up to Sacramento from 26 different legislative districts all around the state of California, and met with their lawmakers and talked to them about bills that were in the state legislature. I've been doing this on my own and with groups since 2008, and what I always hear from these elected officials and their staff is that, oh, yeah, we get it, we're all on your side, but people in my district won't support this. And that's why we started bringing people from around the state and getting them on buses and trains and whatever else to get there to Sacramento to do it, so that they can hear from their district that it's okay, that really
they can vote for this.
You're not going to be vilified or demonized in the next election if you stand up for this, that you can do it. And man, we're not there yet. It's crazy.
Well, what happened in Sacramento this past weekend? You were there for the weekend and for Monday?
Yeah, we had Monday was the big day. This past Monday, a week ago, we all went to the state legislature. We had a training session in the morning. We did some briefing for all the participants, and then we all went over to the Capitol building and divided up into our respective districts and visited those offices to talk about bills that needed to be adopted or stopped. Now, the good news is this. We actually stopped a bad bill. We did succeed. We had measurable success this year.
What was the bill?
It was the e-cigarette bill, SB
we talked about this
648, 647, 640 something, by Senator Corbett, 648, that would have made it illegal to use an electronic cigarette anywhere it's illegal to smoke a cigarette.
Oh, wow.
Now, on the face, you think, well, that has nothing to do with us. But here's the setup on this, is that the definition of e-cigarette in that bill was so broadly defined that every vaporizer qualifies as an e-cigarette. So essentially, you couldn't use vaporizers anymore. anywhere that you can't smoke. Not in your home if you're allowed to smoke a cigarette in your home. If you live in an apartment building where there's no smoking, no vaporizing, right? So this is an anti-tobacco measure basically that was being pushed through huge Democratic support. Nobody was thinking about medical cannabis, and the patients stood up and said, "Wait a minute, we want to vaporize," and they pushed back and stopped it.
Well, that's excellent. Because vaporization, let's just explain to our viewers as well, most I'm sure know, but vaporization, like edibles, like a pill form of marijuana, these are options for patients that don't smoke, that cannot smoke, that maybe have never used marijuana in their lives and are afraid to smoke marijuana, so they can take it in a much more passive way. These options, these options have to be open for that's the difference between medical marijuana and recreational. Recreational, I want to have an edible. It's more of a I want to do something different kind of option for you. Whereas a medical patient, that might be the only way that they can get that medicine in. They can't smoke it down. They have cancer, for crying out loud. How can you smoke, anything?
I suffer from nausea once in a while. Things come out, I get pains. And the vaporization, the vape pens work excellent, and anywhere. Because I can just go in the bathroom or lean down in my car and do it. The smell is not there. I don't get high, but I do get relief from the vaporization. So we need to be able to use that wherever we can.
So that was a really good beat.
And this is an example of a patient standing up and saying, people in your district don't want this thing. And it worked. The bill was withdrawn, and it's not the law.
Congratulations on that.
That's the only good news out of Sacramento this year. So we don't really have anything else good to report. We had a pretty good bill. We had a bill that would have helped to better regulate the collectives and cooperatives in California. It's a big source of controversy in this state about collectives and cooperatives because they're unregulated. In some communities, they're proliferating very quickly. In other communities, they have none. Some places tax them, some don't. It's not. There's no standard across the state, which causes confusion and ultimately results in less access for patients around the state. So this bill would have helped with that. We got down to the last committee vote before it went to the floor and just couldn't get it through the committee. And the bill also had to be withdrawn. And, whenever I bring up good bills getting defeated, people are like, oh, the damn Republicans. And it wasn't the Republicans. It's the Democrats again. It's Democrats, primarily from Southern California, the more moderate Democratic districts, who won't get behind us because they think if they stand up for a bill that somehow legitimizes or codifies medical cannabis policy, that they're going to be seen as soft on drug use, on supporting out-of-control dispensaries and lenient doctors and abuse of the system. And we've got to get to a point where those moderate Democrats down in Southern California, talking about the ones from the San Fernando Valley, from the Inland Empire, from San Diego, and Ventura, they need to understand that it's okay to support regulation. And that's why it's important to hear from folks. And so, our lobby day is over this year, and all our bills have stalled out, so we're not going to get a good piece of legislation this year in California. But whether you're in California or whatever state you're in, it really does matter, because here's what people forget. We think if I'm not talking to my lawmaker, if I don't speak up and say something about medical cannabis, nobody does. And so it's a break even, right? It's neutral. But that's not true. The bill was killed this year in California by the Police Chiefs Association, one of the most powerful lobbies in the state. And they went in there. They actually sent chiefs of police to district offices of all the Southern California Democrats to have the chief of police sit down with the lawmaker staff and say, vote no on this bill. And that's hard to overcome. And we've got to get out and be those people. We need cancer patients and AIDS patients and mothers with children and sickly old ladies in those offices saying, no, I want you to do this.
Absolutely.
I support this.
That was another article that came up this week and was in the news, was that here in California, was that bill was defeated, or not defeated.
It was withdrawn. So strategic, it's like retreating instead of going down the flames.
And the headline that I read was California police leaders defeat medical cannabis regulations. And there's a list on here of at least 25 associations, California Police Chiefs Associations, the California State Sheriff's Association, the City of Bakersfield, Glendale, Highland, Ontario, the League of California Cities. All of these, public safety, they are the organizations that for years have been calling for regulations.
Exactly.
And here they are defeating the very regulations that they've been calling for. They're insincere and hypocritical in their position. Absolutely.
Because if it's vague, what do they have to gain by it being unregulated?
They fear that if there's a law that specifies how to implement medical cannabis in California, all of a sudden it becomes more legitimate. And they're right, it will. But you know what? Tough. The voters did this. This is the law in California, and our law enforcement needs to stop trying to shape the law and start trying to implement the law.
Exactly.
That's what we need in California. And the only pushback on this bill was law enforcement. The medical community, the patient community, cities and counties across the state, plenty of people were for this. Just law enforcement pushing back. And just to illustrate in our closing moments here how important it is to be that citizen advocate, we lost that committee vote, or we were going to lose that committee vote by one vote.
One vote.
One Democrat, one Southern California Democrat got cold feet.
Who was that?
I'm going to hold off on saying that name because there was no vote.
Okay.
And so no one's
I was just saying we maybe could put more pressure on him in his district from the three people that watch us.
We need to put more pressure on
his district. It's not fair to call him out if they didn't cast a vote.
We need to put more pressure on all our representatives in Southern California. We should be beating down their doors every day. Patients and caretakers.
Imagine if one person had been in that office and managed to something had clicked in that guy's head and he said, "Oh, that makes sense."
It would,
and you know, research shows it's not just our experience, which also shows this, but research done by the Congressional Management Foundation shows that if a lawmaker's undecided, the most likely thing to sway their position is a constituent, not a lobbyist, a constituent.
When we come back from the break this time, I just want to point out that there was another article in the paper this week that sort of balanced out this. The horrible law enforcement. So we'll talk about that when we come back from the break. We'll take a break now and get medicated. What? See ya.
This is the Jon Lovitz Vodcast Network.
Upcoming shows to the Jon Lovitz Vodcast Network.
Welcome to FYI. It's Dimitri Young here with Robert Fick. Hey, everybody, welcome to Talking Marijuana.
Hi, everybody. Crabman's Rock and Roll Revival featuring Frazier Smith is on the air, in your hair, and going out everywhere around the world.
I'm Gary Garver, live from the Jon Lovitz Comedy Club.
This is the Jon Lovitz Vodcast Network.
Hi, Jon Lovitz here. It's time to put laughter back into your life. Check out the Jon Lovitz Comedy Club, located in the heart of Universal Studios City Walk, Los Angeles, not Orlando. For tickets, go to thejohnlovitzcomedyclub.com.
You are listening to the Jon Lovitz Vodcast Network.
Hey, everybody, we are back from our break, and we're still talking marijuana. We were talking about law enforcement coming out strongly against regulations here in Los Angeles. And while I did read about that this week, I also read something from our friend Diane Wattles Goldstein, who's been a guest on the show here a couple times. And she is with an organization called LEAP. Law Enforcement Against Prohibition. This is a really forward-thinking organization, and they started small a number of years ago, and they are growing, and they are really making a huge impact in the conversation about marijuana and legalization. And LEAP put out an article called 5 Reasons Cops Want to Legalize Marijuana, and I'm just going to list the 5, and we can kind of talk about it. One is it's about public safety. Okay, legalization leads to public safety. Cops want to focus on crimes that hurt real victims. Real cops really want to focus on crimes that do that. Cops want strong relationships with the communities they serve. The war on pot encourages bad and even illegal police practices. And the 5th reason was cops want to stop kids from abusing drugs. And they go in here and and LEAP sort of expounds on their positioning on all of those things. But, let's just take one. It's about public safety. I mean, when you regulate, when cops know what the parameters of their enforcement is and why they're doing the enforcement, then you have a much smarter public safety policy in your communities.
And you can police it, you know.
And you can police them. We've seen it in Berkeley and in West Hollywood and in other communities that have regulated medical marijuana and have a clear path of how you you go forward to dispense it, how you go forward as a patient, and what you can do. And when that's done, crime goes down. Law enforcement officers
actually
know
gains
this.
control instead of losing control.
Absolutely, absolutely.
You feel that a lot from cops. I hear that they fear losing control of it. The cat's going to get out of the bag. I had the opportunity many years ago to live in the Netherlands for about a year, where marijuana is not strictly speaking legal, but it's tolerated. And one of the amazing things about their coffee shop program, where you can actually go into a coffee shop and just buy marijuana right there, is that the price of tolerance is to obey the rules. And so the government and the police department have set up rules to be tolerated under the Dutch system. And if you don't follow the rules, you won't be tolerated.
Right.
Well, guess what everyone does? They follow the rules because they want to be tolerated. And
absolutely.
That's a good example. They can set up some guidelines in a legal cannabis and medical cannabis situation, and people will follow the rules because they want to provide the medicine, or they want to be in the business, or they just want to have cannabis in their lives. And so they'll follow the rules. They'll do it.
And I love this organization because they show there is this rising tension between constant tension between law enforcement and the marijuana community. And it's so nice to have some enlightened people on the other side who understand why the policies need to change so that we have safe access and safety.
Not only do they understand, they push it.
They push it.
Diane and all her people, they're a great organization.
They're amazing. We'll have her back
really
and some other people from there to talk more about that organization.
Well, there's been so many countries that have proven this over and over. It's not just the Netherlands. It's Portugal, too. It's, when Diane was in here, she was talking about it. It's a shame that we can't just look to those countries and see how well it's done.
Regulations work.
I have to say it's hard to point to Uruguay and go, wow, United States should do what they do, but
they did. Try finding Uruguay.
I cannot, but I know that this week.
I've been to Uruguay, and one of the reasons that the legalization thing happened there was because Mr. Bush sprayed their plants, their crops of food with poison way back in the day. And when we were in Uruguay, there were so many people dying of cancer because of the food that they ate that was sprayed by the United States government. So they have felt it in their skin.
Right.
Why? It's ridiculous. It's reefer madness.
Well, this week they voted for legalization in Uruguay. It's, I think, the first country
maybe
that has legal marijuana. I'm pretty sure it is.
I don't think that they went the whole thing. They're one step from legalization in Uruguay.
I thought they took the vote this year.
No, they took one vote, but they have to go to another one. Yeah. So, but.
A close to home example of that same phenomena is in West Hollywood. And for those of you who are not listening from the Los Angeles area, West Hollywood is 1.9 square miles of sanity.
And it's right in the middle of Los Angeles. In the middle of Los Angeles, so totally surrounded by Los Angeles.
When the whole medical marijuana scene started to blow up in the Los Angeles area, West Hollywood, this 1.9 square mile city, had 6 or 7 dispensaries in it. So it was really crowded with dispensaries, and the city council got really worried, and they jumped up right away, and they adopted regulations and kept things under control. And all these years, the remaining 4 collectives in West Hollywood have been quiet and discreet, and there hasn't been a controversy. And what's amazing about that is that all around West Hollywood and Los Angeles, it has been nothing but controversy.
Absolutely.
Nothing but mayhem and community support turning into opposition, and as a result of all of that, because the Los Angeles City Council failed to act and adopt regulations.
Yes, they did.
It should be an object lesson to every elected official that if you want to control it, you want to keep it under control, make sure sick people get their medicine, the system's not abused, regulate it. Regulate
it. The whole point is to really...
the system and regulate.
Exactly.
The whole point is so importantly to help the sick people that are helped by this medicine. And to that, you were down when you were in Sacramento this past week. You were starting your campaign for transplant patients. You want to talk about that?
Dawn and I visited about 8 offices, and we got a pretty good reception. I mean, how could they fight?
What was it?
Well, I'm sorry. My story is that I'm so sorry. I am a liver transplant recipient. 6 years ago at UCLA, I was told that because of my medical marijuana use, I would not be retransplanted if I rejected my liver. About a month and a half ago, I was in the hospital at UCLA, and when I was being discharged, they actually recommended that I use medical marijuana. So it gave me my tool to go up with Don and ask the legislators, well, what am I supposed to do? They told me they're not going to transplant me, but now they're recommending it. And what am I to do? And really, what am I to do? And what about all the patients out there that are either on dialysis and they're not being put on the list because of their medical marijuana use? There's people dying. We know people who have died. We know people that have died. And so we went and told the story to the legislators, and we got a good reception.
And you know, the reason this matters for the state legislature is that Proposition 215 in California protects patients from criminal prosecution. So if you're a legal patient, you don't get cited, you shouldn't be arrested. The problem is it doesn't provide any protection for your civil rights. And this is a battle we've been fighting for years about employment, housing, parental rights, and access to health care, which includes pain medicine and organ transplants. Medical cannabis patients can, and it's legal, to face discrimination. You can be fired, you can lose your kids, you can be denied housing, and in this case, you could get a death sentence for using medical cannabis because there's no protection under the state law for those things. And that's what Yami is trying to accomplish, and what Americans for Safe Access is going to help her accomplish next year is to finally establish under California law protection for people who legally use medical cannabis. We're not talking about people out smoking weed in the parking lot. No. People who are legally using their doctor-recommended medicine should be able to get that transplant.
That's right.
Whatever the transplant.
Whatever it is.
Brain, lungs.
I believe that it should be any medical, service. You shouldn't be discriminated against.
Sorry, there's a little levity in there. Sorry, my bad. Barry, I was going to recommend you get a brain transplant.
I would love a new brain. I think that would be awesome. I'm going on 53 years with this one. I'm sure a nice new young one would be.
I would while away the hours.
Are there any states that
New Jersey it's so funny because New Jersey, we're talking about Governor Christie, right?
Of all places, right?
Of all places, he's not let the legislation move forward until now. But New Jersey is the only state that has transplant discrimination.
Is the governor responsible for that?
No, the legislature did. It's an amendment to their law. They came back after the fact, which is exactly what we want California to do, is to come back and amend the law and say if you need a medical treatment, your medical cannabis, you should not be a factor in denying it.
New Jersey is ahead of California
as far as that's concerned. Yeah, but there's only one dispensary.
For shame, California.
They're going to let their pot smokers continue to live. You know,
well, it's probably because that show Jersey Shore, right?
Yeah.
Those guys are drinking a lot. They're going to get transplants.
Those guys are trying to get a medical meth thing going.
Oh my God.
So, but we laugh, but it's terrible, right?
No, it is. It's
human
horrible.
beings die, right? You know,
I don't think that any medical treatment should be held back because of medical marijuana use. I mean, I'm pushing transplant because, as Don says, my warranty is coming close, and I need to
be sure.
It might expire, and I need to be able to have backup. But it should be no discrimination against anything in medical, services if you're using medical marijuana.
You know, we hear a lot about this on our legal hotline is veterans coming back from the war. They're in treatment in the VA, and they have to sign a pain contract, and these pain contracts specify that you can't test positive for any illegal drug use.
That's bullshit.
Well, legal medical marijuana is an illegal drug according to the VA, and so until very recently that was an automatic disqualification.
Yes.
So the pain medicine you need because you were injured in the war,
they
you
won't
can't
give
get
you
if you test
because
positive.
you haven't tried pain medicine that grows out of the earth.
Wait a minute.
We have a person that we know
Absolutely.
that was just taken off.
Private hospitals do this too. Insurance companies
here in California.
They will drop you from your pain regimen if you test positive for medical cannabis. There's no legal protection.
I know that private hospitals will do that. I was under the impression that about a couple of years ago, that the VA
made a small
change where they will not prescribe medical marijuana.
What they left is they left discretion to the doctor to say you don't necessarily have to kick them out.
Right.
Yeah. You can.
Because as far as treatment for returning soldiers, medical marijuana has been proven time and time again to be such an amazing medicine for PTSD.
It's a complementary medicine to pain medicine. People can really, I know personal friends of mine who have reduced their pain medication use dramatically with cannabis, which means they probably won't wind up on the transplant list.
Exactly.
I was at 58 pills when I started using medical marijuana, and down to 3
That's like a
medications
huge meal.
now. Yeah, it is.
It's like a plate of pills.
Yeah. So yeah,
I hear that
pill
from
soup.
I hear that from a lot of patients that come into our dispensary that they've been on 15, 16,
because
18 medications.
it doesn't matter how many
it.
pills the pharmacy. It's none of them are going to do what marijuana.
Well, in my case, I had like an allergic reaction to stuff. So I would have, I take one thing and it would cause something to happen. So I would get another medicine to stop that, and that would cause something else to happen. So it's just crazy.
And we know from watching TV that every one of these has 3 to 20 side effects that
including
death, right?
Yeah. Anal bleeding.
That's
always a bad one. I really don't like
anal leakage. Anal leakage.
Nothing should be coming out of there unless you want it to come out of there. That's
unless you're into that.
Well, okay, getting back to a normal medical discussion.
Out and we'll just move on.
To me, some of the greatest news that we've heard in a long time happened this week, and that was Dr. Sanjay Gupta, or as he was referred to this week, Dr. Ganjay Supta. He came out, and I've had I go wishy-washy on him here and there and stuff, but I have to applaud what he did. He came out, he apologized for being so in the dark for
being
so
ignorant.
long. Being ignorant. He did. He apologized for being ignorant and part of the machine that was always working against medical marijuana. He said he realized that we've been systematically lied to by our government about the benefits, scientific benefits of marijuana, and he did this because he went around the country and he actually talked to people, went and saw patients and talked to them. And this is a game changer. He is so popular and so well respected in our entire country that for the last week, it's all that's going on in the news. People are talking about it. They're saying, my dad uses this, my mom uses it, my uncles use it. People are coming out of the closet saying that they use it because now somebody with the voice of authority,
yeah.
and
we just need Dr. Oz to jump on board too, and then it's done. But it takes a lot of guts for Dr. Gupta to turn around and go, "I was wrong."
Say I was.
No, politicians never go, "I was wrong."
And the politicians that do say I was wrong.
Oops, my bad.
Well, we're going to go to break, and we'll come back and talk about the repercussions of what Dr. Gupta had let out this week. So we'll break now, and we'll come back and talk some more marijuana with you.
You are listening to the John Lovitz Vodcast Network.
Upcoming shows to the John Lovitz Vodcast Network.
Welcome to FY. It's Dimitri Young here with Robert Fick. Hey everybody, welcome to Talking Marijuana.
Hi everybody, Crabman's Rock and Roll Revival featuring Frazier Smith is on the air, in your hair, and going out everywhere around the world.
I'm Gary Garver, live from the John Lovitz Comedy Club.
This is the John Lovitz Vodcast Network.
Hi, John Lovitz here. It's time to put laughter back into your life. Check out the John Lovitz Comedy Club, located in the heart of Universal Studios City Walk, Los Angeles, not Orlando. For tickets, go to thejohnlovitzcomedyclub.com.
You are listening to the John Lovitz Vodcast Network.
Talking marijuana, and we were talking about Dr. Sanjay Gupta and his announcement this week and the furor and wonderful feedback that's caused kind of throughout the country.
No.
Oh, I thought
you said furor.
That's what I thought too, yeah.
Yeah. Do you mean fervor?
I meant
isn't Führer like Hitler?
Führer. F-U-R-O-R. Furor. It caused a furor.
Not like Mein Führer, but a furor. Yes.
That is a hard word. We have a new. I'm going to just say this. We have a new.
Let's start over.
We have a brand new. No starting over. We have a brand new city attorney in Los Angeles, and his name is Fewer. F-E. F-U-E-R.
Fewer, yes.
Fewer.
I said it wrong at the beginning.
And he's a Jewish man, and he's quite a nice guy so far, we think. I'm not going to say any bad things this way. But when you go in to meet him, most people go, "Hi, Mr. Fuhrer."
Yeah.
It's F-U-R-E-R.
I think I said that.
That's got to be weird.
It's hard to
We had a meeting with him last week in his office. Glocka went in with our attorneys and stuff to talk about what's happening with Measure D. And 2 days before, I kept practicing because I
fewer and fewer is how I think about it.
It must be hard to be a politician with that name.
Hello, Mr. Fuhrer.
I want to be in power. I'm the Fuhrer.
And then I thought, what do? Do I salute
From what I understand, he's very adamant about people not calling him Fuhrer. And he really likes to be called Fewer. So I was talking about a Fuhrer being caused.
I'll bet there's a community leader out there named Hitler who just can't make any headway because his name is standing in the way.
Who wants to have a bumper sticker that says like Hitler for city council?
Yeah. Fuhrer for leader.
What a digression. All right,
so
Dr. Sanjay Gupta, he came out and he basically said he had been fooled and that he was part of the problem in not advancing the knowledge of medical cannabis because he took the DEA at their word when they said there was no medical value to marijuana. And this is something that ASA has taken this year to the Supreme Court, fighting again and trying to get this rescheduled because it's nonsense. It's nonsense in light of the true and real happenings that are going on out in the world with
medical cannabis. People don't know those statements when the DEA and NIDA and the FDA make those statements. They're not based on science. They're based on politics.
They're based on politics.
Cannabis has no medical value, in quotes, because Congress said so, not because scientists said so.
But Congress for my whole life, if the government came out and said, this is what's going on, this is what we've found, you believed them. You respected the fact that they weren't trying to manipulate their agenda.
But it's changed. We also just assume that, when they make a scientific statement, it comes from science, but it doesn't.
It doesn't. Well,
in the area of medical marijuana.
Thank the Lord for Sanjay Gupta. Yes. I think he's really given a boost to the medicine of medical cannabis. He has given some clarity and some what do they call that when you give your
validation.
Validation.
It might. This might even lead to just Dr. Gupta coming out in favor of this might lead to some research that we haven't been able to do thus far.
Absolutely.
Really
just CBD's research.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It's really funny that in the news this week, Dr. Gupta coming out because of all the seizures the kids were having and the proof that the marijuana is, causing the seizures. And then Governor Christie with, edibles. It's interesting to me that
it's like a tipping point.
The children are the ones that are pushing this forward. The kids. The fact that it is medicine.
And isn't that weird that was one of the things, a foil they've always used against
Exactly. That they always use it against to protect the children from marijuana. And the children are what's pushing our movement
and
forward.
And so many
today.
parents now are just going, nothing is working for my child.
Yes.
Why can I not legally
we had
go to
that
this?
tragic episode we did about autism and cannabis. And,
Yeah. It's
Google that
really
if you're listening. It's a great
and Google that if you're listening, and also get online and watch Dr. Gupta's documentary. It's called Weed.
Weed.
Weed. It's called Weed.
Yeah,
I think it's called Weed, and it's on CNN. It's been playing all week.
Is it a one part?
It's a one part, and he definitely has a good balance. I mean, it's not like all of a sudden he's out in front of our marches
wearing tie-dye
and leading the charge for this. He's a science man. He always has been. And he has just realized that the science exists for medical marijuana. And that is where his apology stems from. And that's where this documentary comes from that's on CNN. And it's quite good. The interesting thing is that none of it's new. None of this information that has come out is new. The only new thing is that someone of importance has acknowledged it,
recognized,
and finally got through the the government's telling me this is right kind of thing, and he's acknowledged it. That's what's new, and that's what's so amazingly interesting about what happened this week.
It is, and there's momentum now. There's like on a national level, it feels like there's a symptoms of a changing conversation. Eric Holder.
Eric Holder this week was the other big news. Had a press conference where he was talking about sentencing for drug policy. He never really mentioned medical marijuana and what's going on with medical marijuana.
Who is Eric Holder for listeners?
Eric Holder is our Attorney General of the United States. He has
currently crusading against medical cannabis and busting people all over the country. But otherwise, he's a great guy.
And actually, what he came out and said was that if we can prove that we're not part of the cartel, they'll go easy on us in court. That's the bottom line.
That's what he said.
That's what he said. Yeah,
that's a certain portion of it. Yes.
He didn't ever really refer directly to medical marijuana, so he didn't say that in reference to medical marijuana.
No, he's
primarily talking about these mandatory minimum sentences and federal sentencing guidelines. It used to be way back before the era of crack cocaine and hysteria for prosecution, all of that judges would have a lot of leeway in sentencing. There were very few crimes with mandatory sentences.
Right.
Capital murder, for instance, had a mandatory death sentence. But beyond that, there weren't a lot of things where it was just locked in. And then in the 1980s and 1990s, Congress and even state legislatures started adopting these laws with mandatory minimum sentences for certain crimes and sentencing guidelines that took the discretion from judges and just locked them into specific sentences and very harsh sentences. And, of course, what that's resulted in is prisons that are overcrowded. We incarcerate more people than any other country on the planet.
Here in California.
And prisons are privately owned, so it's a business.
Well, it is a business. And the prison, what is it? The prisons union, the guard union. Yeah, they're one of the biggest unions in the state. Powerful in the state of California.
And this is one of those examples of unintended consequences in politics. They wanted to get tough on crime to crack down and shut all that down. And what they wound up doing was making everything much, much worse. And so it also seems to be an evolution of consciousness that our Attorney General, he's the highest-ranking law enforcement officer of our country, is saying now publicly that didn't work. Those sentencing, we've got to give back that discretion to the judges. We've got to roll this back a little bit.
Amazing. Another
and cannabis and medical cannabis, people get caught up in this all the time. If you have 100 plants growing, and if right now if you're in Oklahoma, you're like, whoa, 100 plants, but in California, you're like 100 plants, that's nothing.
That's that's on my windowsill.
100 plants will land you in federal prison for 5 years. No discretion, no talk about it. 5 years.
Go to jail. Go directly to jail. Do not pass go.
I think it's 1,000 plants, 10 years, no questions asked. You just straight to jail. So you could be a kid in college who got a little big. Maybe he had a 2-car garage instead of 1-car garage, and wind up doing 5 or 10 years in federal prison with its guidelines. And that's not what they were intended to do. That's not justice. That's overkill. And so good for Eric Holder.
Good for Eric Holder, and also bucking a very strong lobby of the private prisons. Private prisons have no problem with there being.
They want to lock everybody up for littering.
Come on, we can put it in.
Jaywalking, 5 years. Let's do it.
Which is one of the most retarded. That's a horrible word. I take that back and apologize for using it. From my
what you meant was that's really gay.
Yeah. Exactly. And what I really meant was it's just stupidity in policy, to have prisons be privately run.
Wait. Are you discriminating against stupid people now?
I am. Dope of the week. Get in the box. But I mean, prisons make money if they lock people up. It's a private thing. It's like you want your retail business to do better. How do you do that? You increase the amount of things that they're doing.
Prison, yeah.
So
it's
now we're putting people.
But it's ruining people's lives.
Yeah, it is ruining people's lives.
Tears families apart.
And not just the people that go to prison, but all the people that are associated with that person and the misery that they all have to go into. So I'm really glad Eric Holder.
It's costing us a fortune as taxpayers, too.
So how far is it going to be from Eric Holder saying that to something actually being different?
Well, here's the funny thing I find about tipping points, because from time to time we get to these points where something big happens. I remember when Montel Williams was busted in the airport, you guys remember? And he spoke up and became one of the national leaders in this medical cannabis movement, and now with Sanjay Gupta and Tommy Chong. Just because the tipping point happens doesn't mean the thing tips over.
Right.
I think what happens after Gupta and after Eric Holder, after this press conference, depends on what we do with it.
we need to carry it.
We have to.
It can't be like when 215 passed and just assume everything's going to be fine.
Exactly.
We need to make sure that there's.
You know that Washington State, another article I read this week was exactly that, about the tipping point, and that Washington State is gearing up to sue the federal government. They don't want to do it. The Washington State Attorney General said, we really don't want to do this, but we've had discussions with the United States Attorney's Office, and we don't know where we're at with that. We don't know what they're going to do, and so we need to be ready, and we are ready to fight and make sure that the voice of our people is heard. So I thought that was
I'm glad that's taking place over there and not here in California.
There is a 10th Amendment argument to be made for states and medical marijuana and marijuana laws because the federal government doesn't necessarily have any constitutional reason why they have to come into Washington State or Colorado or California and do these things. You know, they don't have to come here and enforce their laws. And so if the federal government is commandeering the lawmaking authority of Washington and their voters, that's arguably a violation of the 10th Amendment.
Absolutely.
So, we have litigation in that regards, and I'm sure other people are doing that as well. So keep an eye on
ASA
that.
has litigation?
We have a bill sort of pending. It hasn't been briefed yet.
Well, the key litigation that you guys are working on is going to be the rescheduling. And I know that's a real long process.
The ball's in their court now. We've applied to the Supreme Court. We've petitioned for a review of the case, and we'll see.
Well, the laws have to change.
10 years.
It's amazing to me to think that the President of the United States, Mr. Obama, sits at the White House right now, and if he'd just been unlucky one time, he wouldn't be there.
Exactly.
And that's not fair.
And he should know that.
He's a great person, and he should know that. He should be recognizing that he could have got busted and he wouldn't be there.
He used to be that guy at the party trying to get you to hold in your hit as long as you could. That was his thing.
I love
That's not even a joke.
I love that guy at the party. I love that guy at the party too. What I don't love is the guy that forgot where he came from and what the hell he was doing.
Well, we will keep reminding you of that.
So
yes, all these things, all of that, we can take that and use that. That's the key. We have to use it.
Well, thanks everyone for joining us in our studio this week, Talking Marijuana. We will be back next week with another show and exciting guests and lots of marijuana
maybe they'll show up
talk.
next week.
Yeah. Maybe we'll have guests.
Maybe we'll have guests next week. They've heard about this show and they're not coming on anymore. No. We love you. Have a great week. Pura vida.
Pura vida.
You are listening to the John Lovitz Podcast Network.
Upcoming shows to the John Lovitz Vodcast Network.
Welcome to FY. It's Dimitri Young here with Robert Fick. Hey everybody, welcome to Talking Marijuana.
Hi everybody, Crabman's Rock and Roll Revival featuring Frazier Smith is on the air, in your hair, and going out everywhere around the world.
I'm Gary Garver, live from the John Lovitz Comedy Club.
This is the John Lovitz Podcast Network.